Okay, so seeing that we have at least 4 of us here for now, and it being on or about 6:30, bring this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission of May 9th, 2022 to order. Please note, in keeping with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency as amended by Governor Baker on February 12, 2022, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. This meeting is being recorded by ECAT and will be available audio and video at a later time, so please act accordingly. For the purposes of quorum, we'll take a roll call attendance. Rory Caulfield's present.
8 Crossman present.
Al Benson present.
Mike Spady present.
Okay, so seeing that we have 4 members present, we are going to proceed. So first up on the agenda is 9 Hobart Way. Oh, just for the record, Ben Carroll has just joined us. Ben, can you just identify yourself for the record so that any public member would know who you are?
Ben Carroll present.
Thank you. 9 Hobart Way. Just before I get started on this, did we get the Mullins from Al on this?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. So Al is eligible to vote. So Ken, you're up unless there's somebody else you want up.
No, I'll take over. Well, we're submitted since the last time we met the drill plan, the frack out plan, the septic plan, the preliminary septic plan, and we met with NRT. We met with the director, the president, and the steward of the land. We filed everything with them, and they have their meeting on the 13th, but they seemed very amenable to us out there. We explained everything. We took a long walk around the site, the utilities, directional drill, the wildflower plantings, and they seemed amenable, but it still has to go to their vote. Does anybody have any questions on the 3 plans I just discussed? The frac plan.
Does anybody want to see any of it?
Just one suggestion on the directional drilling frack out plan on item, let's see, 7. Instead of the Conservation Commission, it may be useful to designate the land use planner, land use / environmental planner, and put Jennifer's phone number in there. It may be hard to catch the rest of us.
We will have that discussion during pre-construction meeting.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to do for you guys?
So I think from our perspective, one other thing I just want to clear up is I know it was raised at the last meeting, is that there was some question about whether or not the permit from planning and zoning was valid or not, and I think that that's been cleared up from the perspective that a permit was actually not issued. It was a certificate of conformance. It wasn't actually a permit, so it was a certificate of conformance, which doesn't necessarily have an expiration date. So I believe that they're in compliance with planning and zoning on this, just to clear up that issue. I think that I think there's probably 2 major things in addition to sort of some other specific things regarding the drilling and everything else, and making sure that we're dealing with watching for turbidity and all the other things that go on in the stream, which I know is in our draft order conditions. But I think there's 2 major things I want to discuss maybe with you and make sure that we understand. So I think we'll likely condition NRT, written NRT approval to this work in the easement prior to you beginning work. so that we don't have to hold up this, continue to have this hearing until it gets worked out with NRT, which, and I think the other thing is that, we'll require a performance bond for the restoration area.
Okay.
So, any concerns over that from the applicant?
I'd have to ask the owners, but I wouldn't imagine it would be.
So Nick Marioni has his hand up, so. I'll recognize Nick for a moment, and then I think Dennis Lindgren of the NRT wants to speak as well. So let me just bring up Nick, and then we'll go to public comment here. Nick? You can, yeah, turn on your video too if you can. There you go.
Hey, good evening, Nick Marioni. When you talk about bond, what amount are you talking about?
So generally, the performance bond is in the amount that it would take to do that portion of the project. So in this case, it's the restoration or the enhancement planning that's going on over in that field.
Okay, so you're talking about the wildflower?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, so it's sort of a minor amount. All right, I'm sure we can agree to that.
Okay. Dennis, am I to assume that you want to speak on behalf? There you go. He has risen his hand. Here comes Dennis too. Hi, Dennis.
Good. Hello.
Can you just identify yourself for the record?
Yeah, my name is Dennis Lindgren. I live at 15 Andrews Farm Road in Easton, and I am the president of the NRT of Easton.
Okay.
Thank you for recognizing me. Just very quickly, we didn't get these revised materials from the applicant in time for our May meeting, so we have not had a chance to digest them and analyze them and put them before our board. So our board next meets on June 13th.
Okay.
So at that time, I expect there will be discussion and action taken on this matter.
Very good. Thank you for the update. I think that from our position, we'll vote on whether or not the project meets Wetland Protections Act and local bylaw guidelines related to that, and we'll condition that they need your written approval to do the work in order for them to actually proceed. So that way it protects the easement and protects your control over the easement. So that's our intention here tonight as I see it. So any questions from the applicant?
No.
Okay, any further public comment for 9 Hobart Way? Jennifer, I know I didn't come to you on this, but I think I covered it, didn't I?
You did. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so go ahead, Al.
On the conditions, it may be worth adding one other condition under 14 as a G, and that's something along the lines, any proposed deviation from the order of conditions shall be approved by the land use / environmental planner prior to commencement of work that would create a deviation.
Acceptable.
That's actually in number 10. It says the same thing that you're asking for.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
What's the date of the NRT meeting?
June 13th.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further public comment or any more comments from the board, Ken, I assume you want us to close?
Please.
Make a motion to close 9 Hobart Way.
A second.
Caulfield Spady is second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Rossman, aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
That's an interesting order you guys got going there. So,
Yeah, I thought maybe we just went in the batting order we started in. So I thought Ben might go last, but he cut Mike, so no big deal.
We're keeping you on your toes, Rory.
5-0 to close. So make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions noting that specifically that the applicant needs to have written approval from the NRT for work in the easement prior to commencing any work, and that must be provided to the commission. And second, a performance bond for the restoration planting area shall be required.
Second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Crossman, aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
That's awesome. So that was Crossman with the second. So Ken, that's it. And you guys have your marching orders at this point to get the project moving once the NRT gets things lined up for you, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. Just a moment. Oh, I already did. Okay, so next up is 91 Union Street. This is a notice of intent for a proposed apartment complex, access to drive, parking, stormwater, everything else that goes along with it. So this is actually only under the Wetland Protection Act, since this is a special project. So Mike, you're in the hot seat.
Thank you. Once again, Mike Toohill with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, and Damien, I see, is coming up as well. Last time we met, there were several items that the commission asked us to submit, which we have. First is, and I'll let Damien do this when he gets on, the response letter to Beta's stormwater review comments. We issued a letter regarding compliance with riverfront development and a figure that shows compliance with riverfront development, riverfront area redevelopment. This is a disturbed riverfront area. Permitting plans were revised somewhat, so we've sent those in also, and landscape architecture plans as well. So we've submitted those. And then a stormwater management report was also revised, and Damien submitted that. So I'll let Damien start with the stormwater, and then we can get into some of the other issues.
All right. So I might, can I share my screen? Do I have access to allow to do that? Yes, I do. A little slower here. Screen 2. So the comments from Beta for this review, the project has been going around for quite some time now. At this point, very limited as far as comments. Major, addition was some. The screen does not move too quickly through the screen share, but was the installation of an impermeable breakout barrier along the edges, and then additionally some over dig areas that, not a major addition, nothing crazy there, along the 3-to-1 slopes. They also, the lag is tough here, had some comments about, the O&M plan, the leaching basins, those with the adding some additional information as far as what type of silt sacks and what type of inlet protection that would be. Most of it, is just clean up, edits here and there, nothing major from the Beta peer review at this time. So I don't think there's really much there for me to go in depth on as far as the design goes. Actually, I just saw another minor change there. The outlets, they asked us to add, protection all the way down to the wetland there, as that is a steeper slope. Combine the outlet into one outlet so that, you know, it's easier to maintain, and things of that nature. There wasn't much from their final review, hopefully, and we were able to respond to all of them pretty quickly and easily.
So that's riprap there?
Down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a request by Beta. They, you know, this slope is, you know, like a 1 to 10, so it's pretty steep. It's just like an additional protection. That said, you know, that is also disturbed area. There's currently, I want to say, on the existing conditions, there's a, you know, a retaining wall, like a head wall almost right here, and a catch basin that's going to be removed, so that, you know, it's going to be. It's not like we're adding additional disturbance for that. It's just a, you know, protection against scour.
Sure.
If there's any part of the plans anyone would like to look at particularly, I can go into depth, but there wasn't anything major on that review or revisions to the plan since I think the board last saw them.
Okay.
Okay. Mike, is there anything, I mean, on the riverfront areas or anything like that you want to dive into deeper?
Not yet. I can go into that in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's much on the plans I really need to go over as far as additions. Unless there's, something someone else is missing. So I can hand it over to you, Mike, if you want to.
Okay. So I'll start with, last week we had a meeting with the Brockton Conservation Commission, and there are a couple items that in common between the two commissions that have come up. And the first one I want to talk about is the landscape plans. So the first thing was the new landscape plans we submitted. We switched out all natives. It was a miscommunication between us and the landscape architect. So we've got all native species proposed to be planted. There are a couple areas that Brockton asked us to do some additional plantings in, and there's some areas that we've been talking to Jennifer about doing some additional work in as well. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a couple of those areas quickly. And this is still, unfortunately, still a work in progress. I sent everything over to the landscape architects actually just this morning to get them to revise these plans again. So what I'm showing you is an existing conditions plan that show where the test pits were done. And part of what Jennifer had commented on is these test pits up here, right near wetland. This is wetland L. This is the Brockton Easton town line. These test pits here caused some understory disturbance. The trees weren't disturbed, but the shrubs certainly were. So Ori went out and did some measurements in these areas, and we're in the process of proposing some additional plantings. They're fairly small, 700 to 800 square feet in size, these two areas. But we're going to do some additional shrub plantings because, like I said, the trees are still there. So again, we're going to plant natives up in this area. This is the existing condition. The proposed condition, that soil absorption system is right here. So the slope goes right down almost to this test pit. So we're going to go right below where the slope is and do the plantings. And then on the bottom of the slope, we're also going to put in conservation wildlife mix besides shrubs. So I'm working with Travers to put together the plant palette and schedule for that area.
So Mike, will that be labeled on these plans or only on the landscape plan?
On the landscape plans.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, as long as it's clear and labeled somewhere, and if you can quantify it, then that's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to show you on this because I know you pointed out the test pits. I wanted to show the commission where the test pits were, where the disturbance occurred. So we're gonna fix that. While I'm on this screen, it's fairly easy to see on this screen too. This is in Brockton, but there's an area right down in here, and there's an area up in here that's outside of the easement for, we don't want to be planting under the power line easement. So here's the edge of the easement right there. So we've got this little triangle here and this little triangle here. So we're going to do some additional plantings in those two areas as well. And then down, it's easier to see on this plan. Down in this area here, actually, you know what I can do is I can pull up the landscape plan. Show you where we're going to do it. Find that for you. So these are the two areas in Brockton, this little triangle here, this little triangle here. It's by the infiltration system. The area that we were talking about by Wetland Valley that we're going to do the replanting is here. Right now, this was the planting extent right here. It's red maples going up on the slope, but we weren't proposing to put any shrubs down here. We're going to use a conservation mix, but we're going to add shrubs. Same thing here and here. We're going to add some shrubs. And then down, oops, a little too fast. We have a line of, this is the riverfront area. Is hard to see, but it's this line right here is the riverfront area. So we have plantings that we proposed all along here. And Jennifer pointed out there's an area kind of downslope of the work and just upslope where existing plantings are, which is this kind of this triangle right here, where we're going to do some additional plantings as well. We're going to put some shrubs in this area. That was just called out for wildlife conservation mix, but we're going to put a few shrubs in there as well. Again, it's not a real large area, so, you know, we're talking, 3-4 dozen shrubs or something total in those. And there's actually kind of 5 areas that we're talking about doing that. So I've got that material into John at Traverse, and hopefully we'll bring that back to you quickly so we can have it at the next meeting. So that's about it for landscaping, unless you've got questions about landscaping before I move on.
Nope, it's just to quantify it so we can put it in the order, that's all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, areas and plant numbers and species, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. What I just put up is the Riverfront Plan that we just submitted as part of the application here. I'll turn off a couple of these buttons. This is the area that I was just talking about. Planting is going to occur somewhere down in this area here, down slope of the work. This graphic shows the undeveloped and disturbed, and then temporary and permanent impacts in the riverfronts. We broke that all down. We wrote a memo to the commission talking about how we're in compliance with Riverfront under the Wetland Protection Act. And so rather than go through all the details on that, if you've got questions about Riverfront, the bottom line is we're not getting any closer to the riverfront. We're getting further away. We're reducing the impervious surface. We're taking out some of the previously developed disturbed area and turning it back into riverfront. So this whole project is a net positive to the riverfront on this side of the site.
I think with the restoration that you're proposing, then you do meet that, yes. I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the original question was just that in order to meet that criteria, you had to have something in addition to grass, which I think you've done now. So
Right. We have that whole line of native shrubs and trees, and then we're going to put more shrubs in, and we're going to use the conservation mix in there as well.
Okay.
Okay. That's it for Riverfront. I think those were the main items, unless there are other items that I forgot that the commission wants to discuss.
That's all I had.
Yeah, I was just going through the list here, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like it is fine with me. I think that, Jennifer, that's it, right? For you? We covered everything? Just before we get to other members of the board, I think this is another case where we'll probably require a performance bond related to the restoration plantings.
Okay.
Just to ensure that everything gets completed, but
I'll let Rick know.
So I did meet with Stephanie and Suzanne in the office to make sure we were not duplicating bonds.
Okay. Any questions from the board before I go to public comment? Any public comment for 91 Union Street? Before I get in trouble for not saying the full name. Okay, so seeing none, Mike, I think I'm willing to condition getting the plans. If you want to proceed, we okay with that, Jennifer, or no? Now she's giving me the,
How long do you, I mean, will the, you'll have the plans within how many days roughly?
I just sent it to John. I'm hoping he can do it this week, but I can't promise on his behalf.
Okay. I mean, we have 21 days to issue the permit. We've been doing it within 1 or 2. I mean, if we hold off for a week, we're still within the 21 days. And if we receive those plans, then we can put the correct plan dates in the permit.
And we're before Brockton for their next meeting as well. So we didn't close Brockton.
so Mike, do you want to close or do you want us to continue?
Well, I mean, if you're more comfortable continuing it, to the next meeting, I think we'll definitely have the plans in by then. We can take a look at them. Hopefully we'll be done in Brockton as well.
Okay, so, motion to continue to May 23rd.
Give me a second.
Caulfield Spadia, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye. Beatty, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Sorry, we're having fun with it, Mike.
And then mix it up again.
Yes.
We did, yeah.
Can you guys do alphabetical order?
Apparently not.
Just like to surprise. We like to surprise each other.
Okay.
I can't believe this is what we've taken to entertaining ourselves here. But I do appreciate it. So we'll see you on the 23rd. I don't see any issues getting in and out of here as long as the plans are as you described, so.
Okay.
Tonight was pretty quick. It will be even quicker next time, I think, so.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Next up is, and Damien too, thank you. Next up is 560 Foundry, who has requested a continuance to the 23rd.
We're actually gonna have a meeting in the office on the 24th. So I think Mike had asked, you might as well continue it to June 6th.
Okay then, easy enough.
Yep.
Glad you're here. So we will continue 560 Foundry till June 6th.
Spadia, second. Or is that a motion?
Yes. Consider it a motion.
Perfect.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Crossman, aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
5-0 to continue. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Next up is a certificate of compliance for Twin Brooks Drive. Jennifer.
So they've actually asked for a continuance to the next meeting. They don't have everything uploaded to Permit Eyes and haven't paid the fee yet. So
Oh my.
we're just gonna move them to the next meeting.
Okay, that was going to be an in-out. Let's be done with it, but no.
All right.
Motion to continue Twin Brooks Drive certificate of compliance to May
5/23.
Spadia,
I'll
second.
second.
Oh.
Spadia second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Crossman, aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
We're in a groove now. Okay, next up is a request for extension for Quesad Commons.
Yes, they're asking for an extension, but it looks like the COVID tolling period would extend their permit 462 days to September 9th, 2023, if there are no violations. So I would just suggest a site inspection.
So we have time before the permit expires to do the site inspection?
Correct. And Erica is here if she wanted to add anything.
I'm promoting
Or
her.
not.
You said September 23, Jennifer?
September 9th, 2023. Another year.
Erica, I promoted you in case you needed to pipe in here at all. So there you are. So the intention is to go out and do a site inspection. If we've got no violations, we'll just, the tolling, it takes place. If we've got violations, we'll work on an extension prior to the expiring, right? You're muted, Erica, sorry.
It's like the first time I've ever used Zoom. No, the question is, does the permit tolling apply to the local wetland permit? I think that was a little bit of a uncertainty, which I put in the cover letter because, to my understanding, it was applicable to state permits. So the superseding order of conditions. However, there's also the local permit. And if you're okay with tolling it, that's fine. We're not arguing.
I thought it did.
Okay.
In the beginning, they did that weird thing where they said state permits were this, then permits issued by Concom were this, and by the bylaw is something totally separate.
Okay.
So I'll have to pull out the section on the bylaw just to make sure, but you did ask for it within 30 days of its expiration. So
great.
If we need to handle that, we can certainly do that.
So Jennifer, you'll get out. You're actually on vacation next week, though, right? So do you have time to get out there before our next meeting?
I would expect so. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then just Erica, you didn't have an email or a phone number for you in your email, so if you want to just send me an email and schedule the site inspection.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, our office number is at the bottom of the cover letter, but I will follow up with an email. Give you my direct
You have 3 different offices there. I'm not
yeah.
one, so it's a lot easier if you put your actual number or email in your letter. Thanks.
So we will continue this for further information. They've got their application to extend in place if they need it. And Jennifer will figure out whether the tolling applies or not, and whether they've got violations and everything else. So, motion to continue Quesad Commons application to extend request for extension to May 23rd.
Speedy, second.
Caulfield Speedy, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Crossman, aye.
Oh,
Carol, I.
that was beautiful.
Speedy, aye.
It was like harmony.
Stereo.
There you go. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
So next up is 91 Summer Street violation. We had asked the engineer and applicant to attend. Okay. Somebody's bringing up people, so I'll leave it be. I think Brad wanted to come up too, so I just promoted him. So
Brad is here, and I believe on behalf of the applicant, attorney John Canavo is in the audience as well.
You want me to bring him up?
I suppose we could. I don't know that there's a whole lot to be said in this case, but.
Okay, so he's promoted. Here he comes.
Thank you.
So Jennifer, before we start, can you just give the commission a little bit of an overview of the issue here at 91 Summer?
Sure, we had a quick talk about it at the last meeting, but basically they have a common driveway going into the property, a number of lots that would be developed. There was no work within the 100-foot buffer zone. A resident called and said that work was being done in the buffer zone. I did the follow-up site inspection and notified the applicant and the engineer that work was being done in the buffer zone without a valid permit when we met on site and started talking about restoration plans.
So just as a matter of clarification, because I think it might be only one member on the commission, at 87 Summer, I think it was 87 Summer, there was a similar violation by this applicant. There was extensive work taking down trees and destruction of wetland buffer zones. And in one place, they actually did go into the wetlands themselves. And there was an extensive restoration plan that was developed. At that point, we rolled it into the notice of intent for the driveway that they were going to build. This was the original plan for the driveway to go up through 87 Summer into this area to access these 3 extra lots that are up into the uplands part of this property. I'm concerned because this is now 2 in a row with this right next to each other that the same thing happened. And the last one was an extensive restoration. I don't know what the size of this one's going to be, but the other one was quite extensive, the amount of restoration that was going to need to be done. And this is done within a year of the last one. I don't know what we can do to make sure that when you get machines in there, they know where the heck they can go and they can't go. I mean, the other ones, they went right up to where the pink flags were.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a little bit at a loss here how to convey the seriousness of this particular issue and have the developer respect the wetland resources. I mean, this commission works pretty darn well with developers in making sure that you can do the projects in a manner that's consistent with protecting the wetland resources. But then we go and beyond that and start harming the wetland resources. I don't even have an answer for it. And you know, restoration certainly isn't the same as having the original wetlands in place. It'll take us years to get back potentially to where we were. And especially they were taking out big trees, not little ones, big ones.
So, Mr. Chairman, you are
years to grow back.
You are correct. If I may just step in for a minute, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions. On behalf of the applicant, certainly we understand the frustration of the commission. I'm personally frustrated and a little embarrassed, albeit this being the second time that we're before you for a similar violation. I will tell you that the severity of this one, luckily, does not appear to be quite as bad as the first one, meaning we haven't gone beyond the 50 with the clearing, which is great. As you mentioned in the prior one, there was some clearing that happened right in the BBW. Luckily, that's not the case this time. We have been instructed to prepare and have prepared and submitted a rather extensive buffer zone restoration plan. It did come through Friday afternoon. I'm sure no one has had a chance to review it yet. So we won't get too far into detail on that. As far as what happened, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a good explanation as to what happened. We did stake the limits of clearing at the 100-foot buffer zone. The trees were cleared. Jennifer notified us. We went out and said, yep, somebody screwed up here. We actually went back on site last week and we restaked the limits of clearing at the 100-foot buffer zone. And found that some of our stakes that we set previously had just been run over and were broken in half and trampled by the machinery. I suspect that the tree clearers got carried away, for lack of a better way to put it. I don't think that there's any benefit whatsoever to my client to have over-cleared. He's not seeking to take advantage of any of the area that was over-cleared. He has proposed to bring it all back to restoration as best he can, albeit we acknowledge that, as you said, it's going to take years for that area to get back to what it was before. So on behalf of the applicant, our sincerest apologies, and I really wish we were not here in this capacity tonight.
I appreciate it, Eric, and you know, you had the same approach the last time of this, and I think you personally understand it. My concern is that, you know, you're not in charge of the machines that go out there. And if you were on site to make sure the machines didn't go there, I bet you put yourself standing right where the line was to make sure they didn't go beyond it, but you're not. So how do I get the message across to the applicant that, you know, that this is a serious violation and, you know, we don't issue fines. Maybe we should be issuing fines. You know, maybe we should be putting bonds on every one of the project by the applicant that comes before us to ensure that there aren't potential damages so that we're covered in case something happens. But then maybe that's incense him, well, I'm covered, so, you know, let me just go and do what I need to do. I don't know why either. Like you said, it doesn't make sense to me that there's no advantage. There wasn't any advantage in the other violation either to him, you know, clearing the additional areas. I'm at a loss. I started this conversation. I'm at a loss as to what's going on here. Is it really just lack of attention to and respect for this particular portion of the regulations? I don't want. I mean, this is a pretty well-respected developer, and I don't want to believe that. But somebody's got to show me something else to ensure that our protection and our responsibilities are being taken seriously.
Understood. The only thing that I can say, and you know, I completely understand your position. I will say that we're at a point now where the developer is going to want to move forward on the project, and in order to do that, he's going to have to start spending some real money on these restorations. The restoration plan that we just came up with that we submitted to you is going to clock in around $40,000. The one prior to that is going to be even more than that. So as you know, when these things turn into dollars and cents for people, they do pay attention. And I think we're at that point moving forward.
So one of the concerns that I had when we issued the permit for 91 is that the 87 was going to be abandoned, right?
Yep.
And so now I've got two restoration projects together, quite extensive. How do I ensure that they get done timely?
Well, that's certainly a good question. You know, I'm sure that we can condition certain things if we need to. I think it's in the applicant's best interest to get these done, and I know that he's hoping to get these done this growing season if we can come to a resolution on the particular on this newest restoration plan and get that approved. I know he does have an impetus. He does have interest in some of these lots from potential buyers. So it's on him to make right on this thing and get clear of these type of issues.
So right now you have a cease and desist on the property.
We do, yes.
We will issue an enforcement order.
Yes.
Hope that should be done in the next day or two. The enforcement order allows us to, or the commission to handle the required restoration immediately, not in a permit. It's actually the cleaner way to handle these. So we'll issue that right away. If you have a certain time frame that you want the plants planted and completed, that can be in the enforcement order. I haven't read through it yet. It just came in on Friday, and I haven't looked at it yet. And we'll send copies to the commission. I know, Brad, if you want to comment on that, are you able to get that work done in this growing season?
We should be, if we really organize and get everything together, if we could get plantings in by, Memorial Day, no later than beginning of June would be ideal. If we were to go past that, we'd have to come up with some sort of irrigation system, or we'd have to hold until the fall. So it depends on, when we can get nursery stock and coordinate. Obviously you need some time to digest it and we get an approval. So we're in the mid planting season now, so we're coming up closer to the end within, short amount of time.
One thing that I will add to that is I did speak with the applicant earlier today, and from day one, and he reiterated today that if we can get this done this season, he wants to get it done this season. Certainly does not want to let it wait till the fall, and he is willing to post a bond for the restoration to cover it and make sure that everything gets done. I know that the commission has been going that way with some of these restoration projects lately, so totally that's on the table, obviously, and willingly.
Any other questions from the commission? Jennifer, of course, if you've got anything to add.
No, I'm just thinking we would issue the enforcement order in the next couple of days. We can put June 1st as the date required for the planting. And then if things need to be amended, you can amend an enforcement order so that we're able to get all of this done at the same time. We can ask for an estimate for what it costs to actually finish the restoration plan, and that can be the bond if the commission chooses. But that can be decided at the next meeting if you need to.
Okay. How do we, so we can request a bond? How do we deal with 87 Summer?
87 Summer, excuse me, there is an existing order on 87 Summer, I believe. And as part of that order, there was a conservation restriction that needs to come through. Yeah, I'm thinking it. I'm talking it out as I'm thinking of it, and I'm open to suggestion. I don't know that we want the two tied together if we can avoid it, but I know the commission wants to make sure that 87 gets done, and I understand that. I would think that, you know, as a practical matter, we would go out and do both at the same time. Plant both of these restoration areas at the same time would make sense to me.
Were there any dates in that order of conditions for 87?
I have to look back. I don't believe there were.
I don't believe we put any in. So Jennifer, just as a practical matter, how do we hold the applicant accountable for 87 Summer? You don't have to give me an answer.
Yeah, that was before me, so I'd have to pull out that order and see how it reads.
It was an unfair question. I didn't ask you to, try and find on something that you didn't deal with to start with. So,
one idea that I have, can I share my screen for just a second?
Sure.
All right. So this is the plan that we just put together for the buffer zone restoration on 91. See this blue area here where my cursor is?
Yeah.
In this blue area here? These are the areas that were under the order for 87. So they do overlap, if that gives us anything. These areas do overlap a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it would make sense to me that we would continue, we would come through and plant all of this and just continue right down this path with it at the same time.
Yeah, I think that you should probably talk to Brad about that. So, that was my only thought process there. I don't know if Brad was involved in that one. I thought it was somebody else. So.
No, it was Brad.
That would be the goal, to treat it as one project and plant it out at the same time.
Listen to me.
Back in there.
If you guys do that, it makes us very happy. So, I just, my frustration is coming through, and it normally doesn't, so I apologize. But, I am just trying to hold you accountable but also at the same time respecting you guys at the same time. And that's the balance I'm trying to play right now, is it, I need to hold you accountable. And at some point, my patience is going to wear thin. So, and if you didn't, you must have caught some of that at the beginning. My patience was wearing thin. So I simply want you to do this as expeditiously and as possible within the most probable successful outcome. So I don't want you to push it in such a manner that it doesn't become successful, that it has to get repeated or anything along those lines. But I certainly would want this to be done as expeditiously as possible and tie as much of it into 87 as you possibly can. So.
Understood, absolutely. And your frustration is warranted, and we understand that completely. My question, in the interest of expediting things, the next meeting is not until the 23rd, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking in the enforcement order about having the plantings done by the 1st. Obviously, we don't want to order that much stock until we have an approved plan. Can the commission authorize Jennifer to approve the plan, or is that something that would have to come back and be voted on by the commission? Only thinking Jennifer can get to it this week, let's say, that gives us some extra time to get stock ordered and things like that.
Jennifer, how comfortable are you with approving it? Because I'm 100% comfortable with you, with your opinion on this.
I'm fine with that. I would just be comparing it to DEP's guidelines for doing restoration work. So I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And then one other question that I'll ask is with regard to the cease and desist. So one of the things that we need to do to be able to do this restoration is get access. Right now, we only have access off the small paved common drive that's there. We can't get machinery in there to deliver stock. The main trunk of the common driveway is located right in the middle of the project. Outside, I'm going to share my screen one more time. It's right here. It's at the furthest point from all the buffer zones. And when we met on site, Jennifer and I did talk about putting a construction pad here. The issue is I can't get trucks in here to deliver stock. Would it be possible to extend that pad just to give us a runway into the site far outside of buffer zones, or is that something that we don't even want to take a look at this point?
Extending it as a construction exit with stone?
Yes, as a construction entrance with stone, just getting it back to say this point where my cursor is here, so we can actually get the trucks in here to drop stock off, things like that. Thinking that that way it would be it would be in areas that are all intended to be disturbed, as far away from wetland buffers as we can possibly get on this site.
It would keep the amount of tracking down on the road.
That's the other thing. If I drove a truck through there right now, it's going to spray mud all over the place. If I can get a solid area to get trucks in and out, it will help limit that a lot.
I'm okay with it, but Jennifer, is there a reason why we shouldn't do it?
No, I'm okay with that as well. I do have one question when we're finished with this discussion though.
Yes.
Yeah, the three houses that you just showed on that plan.
Yes.
That was what 87 Summer was approving. Is that correct?
I think they only had
that was an A&R special permit and variance plan. It all came out of 81 and 91 Summer, that combination.
So
I can pull it back up.
Which project is the conservation restriction on?
Right now, the conservation restriction is on 91 Summer. It basically follows this red 50-foot buffer zone that you see here. I think this conservation restriction was something like, don't quote me, was something like 9.5 acres. And it ties to one at 38 Randall, which is like 4.5 acres. And that gave a pathway between two areas that, I'm using my hands like you can see them here, between two areas that the town is actually in control of.
So what's the status of the conservation restriction?
Conservation restrictions have been drafted. They're in draft form. I actually believe you reviewed the one on 38 Randall and had a couple of comments. We've actually revised and made those comments. We just got to get it back to you to take a look at.
Okay, I just don't remember seeing this one. So if the conservation restriction for the permit for 81 Summer is tied to one of those house lots, then we probably want to see that sooner rather than later.
We can do that. I think my thought process was let's get 38 Randall done and then we'll just model this one after that one. Mm-hmm. But since we have your comments, I can send them both back to you and let you review them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We had somebody in the attendees with their hand up, and then he dropped off. So I apologize for that. I was going to recognize him once we got through the discussion here.
He's back in.
Oh, that's a different person. Just 1 second before I go to public comment on this. Jennifer, you're going to need a vote from us?
For the enforcement order, that would be helpful, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so public comment. Anybody got any comments before I go to public comment? Okay, so I'm gonna recognize Matthew Keenan. Mr. Keenan? You can unmute yourself, turn on your camera.
Well, that's going on. Since this is a second violation, is this something that would warrant a surety bond on because of the amount? We got, our professional engineer on the project indicated that the first one was greater than 60,000 and the second one was 40,000. So you're talking about $100,000 worth of bonding.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna include that in the enforcement order. So, Mr. Keenan, you had two computers there, so I don't know if you had to turn the speakers off on the other one. You're on mute, so I can't hear you.
That better?
That's better, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Matt Keenan. I live at 8 Randall Street, and I'm probably one of the only direct abutters to your project down there. And very disturbing of what's going on as far as cutting inside the buffer zone. You gentlemen all agree that you can replace the buffer zone. I don't know how you're going to replace 12, 16, 18, 22-inch diameter trees in the buffer zone. And it has disturbed it to the degree that what used to be back there is no longer back there. As it goes as far as fowl, goes as far as deer and any other animal that lives down there. But just by walking my property line, I can see where you've cut into the buffer zones immensely. Now I find out you're doing the same thing 2 doors down. You haven't corrected that. That's been over a year. I think there should be a stop work until this is restored, because they obviously don't have a good standing with the town of destroying property and not repairing it.
They do have a cease and desist order.
Yeah, but you're talking about letting them continue building. There's no incentive for them to fix it unless you put a stop to the work.
So
once they put to work and rebuild what they destroyed, maybe they'll do it a little quicker.
So our intention is to have them post a bond to ensure that the work is done.
They can sit on a bond forever and a day. I used to build roads, sir. I'm familiar with bonding. I'm familiar with wetlands, just enough to be dangerous. But it's just, there's no incentive for them to correct it right away or to correct it at all. They can sit on a bond. It's pennies on the dollar to buy a bond. They have nothing holding them accountable for it.
The cease and desist does not allow them to construct the houses yet.
And how long is the cease and desist order in effect for?
Well, we'll issue the enforcement order first. We'll see how far they get on the buffer zone restoration plan, and then the commission will revisit that and then amend the enforcement order if needed.
Will they be notifying the abutters of meetings like this?
It's posted in the, it's posted on the agenda. There's no requirement to notify abutters for this.
Okay, so when is your next meeting coming up to discuss this project?
The next meeting is May 23rd.
Okay, very good. I appreciate your time, and I hope you respect what I'm asking.
No, I do appreciate the comments.
Right. Thank you much.
Thank you. Okay, so any comments from the commission?
Just thinking the bond through, I think I like the idea of the bond only affecting 91. Just in relation to going backwards, tying up two properties. I think it's a little cleaner that way.
So do we want the bond on 91 to cover the restoration on both?
I say no. I think the bond on 91 should cover the restoration on 91.
So how do we ensure that 87 or 81 gets done? I keep on saying 87, it's 81.
81.
It all depends on how you wrote the order. So the order gives an applicant the ability to do a project. It doesn't require them to do it, depending on how you wrote it.
When we started, the driveway to lot 4 was supposed to go up through 81, which was the work that was going to be done in addition to the restoration work. That plan has changed, so that driveway is going to be accessed off the common driveway now. So really, the only thing left in that order is the restoration work.
And is there still a lot 4?
There is a lot 4. The lot 4 is the existing house that's there today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the only work that's left in there is the restoration work. I believe the conservation restriction is a condition. And I don't believe there were timelines given for that work, but I am confident that I can work with the applicant to get these taken care of at the same time. The applicant has an interest in not being hindered as much as possible, as you would expect. So the sooner we can get past this, the better off he's going to be.
Okay, just understand that right now my only leverage is 91.
Understood. Understood.
So you are going to be held accountable for 91 to a degree that you might be more than we normally would. Not that we don't hold you accountable, but there will be no leeway.
Understood.
Because it's going to be the only chance I get to get 81 done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else? Thanks, Ben, for the comment. I make a motion to issue enforcement order for 91 Summer Street, including a cease and desist and requirement of a performance bond for the restoration.
Spady, a second.
Caulfield, Spady, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Pressman, aye.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Okay.
Can I just clarify very quickly, Mr. Chairman, that cease and desist does not apply to the construction entrance that we talked about installing, is that correct? We can install that?
Correct.
We can install that, okay. Okay, well, we thank you for your time. We appreciate your patience and we understand your frustration. So thank you for working with us, and I will do everything I can to get this done.
I just want to be clear, and the applicant didn't show up, so I'll say it to the attorney. If we get another issue like this before us with this applicant, I can assure you, it will not go as easy as this.
And I have two things to say. One, you don't have to apologize for masking your angst. You've been nothing but professional throughout. I say that in the utmost of sincerity. And I will stress to my client how he had better not be before this board again for any issues, with the utmost of clarity. While I don't know you, I promise you, I've been doing this almost 30 years. I represent a lot of developers. I will be unmistakably clear with him as to this board's feelings, thoughts, and what could happen. I say that, and I will relay that message in unmistakable terms.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Tufts Farm tenancy. So I think that at this point, we need to take a vote on whether to accept any of the bids for Tufts Farm. I think our conclusion at this point is that neither bid met our criteria and our goals, so that we're going to reject all bids. It would be my proposal at this point. I think that was our proposed action, and I think that's probably the best action to take for the commission. Any comments from the commission?
Agreed.
So I'm going to make a motion not to award a bid for the Tufts Farm tenancy.
Second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Rossman, aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Smitty, aye.
That was Caulfield's with Crossman in a second. Okay, so I think that's it. You've got letters that you'll send out to the applicants.
Correct.
Roy, just to raise this procedurally, were we supposed to have public comment on that? I don't know if we
I'm
opened that
sorry.
up.
Yep. So do we have any public comment on? Thank you very much. Any public comment on Tufts Farm tenancy? So seeing none. Thank you for clarifying for me. Okay. So you've got letters. Do we need to talk about the current tenant?
Nope.
Okay, so next up is an item about town meeting articles submitted for the include the WPA exemption in the bylaw. This is an article on town meeting next Monday night where we're going to make a minor modification to the bylaw. We do have regulations that are ready, prepared. They're posted on the website. We've actually been through them. A couple of you may not have seen them already, but we've actually been through them last fall when this first issue came up, and we decided we couldn't make the changes because the bylaw didn't allow it. So any public comment on this at all? So seeing none, but the one thing I do want to say is that I think that we should schedule the hearing for the regulations for the 23rd if we can.
Yep, we just posted it today.
Excellent. So if the bylaw change gets passed, at the next meeting we'll actually have a hearing, a public hearing on the regulation changes, and then we can make the changes. And that gives us a chance because we want to make sure that the regulations, we're creating these exemptions, but we want regulations and control around what those exemptions are. And we're putting a little bit of control behind it. And I think if any questions come up at town meeting, we've got that answer too, is that we're not just opening the gates here. We are literally, it requires administrative approval for these minor projects. So at the very least, so.
And I've been keeping track for the last several months when someone asks for a permit for something and I say, you sure you don't want to wait until May 16th and see what happens? So there are 12 on the waiting list.
Okay.
Opening the gates for people to build really small sheds.
Need a permit for.
Having a stone path in your backyard.
There's about to be a boon, people.
So obviously our intention is not to allow people to put additions into wetlands. It's to have these minor projects that don't impact the wetlands areas. And if ever they're in a situation where Jennifer goes out and says, oh, there's too much slope here, or it's really just too close, she'll make them do an RDA or an NOI, and we'll go from there. And that's the way this is supposed to work. So I do appreciate everybody's time on this. So hopefully next Monday we'll have a vote on this and we can do it. Chair report. So first thing up is delegated topics for members. So we had been talking the last couple of meetings about trying to assign some topics for members, each one of us to have a little bit of, so when we have a project come before us, we say, are there any waiver requests on here? Is there any wildlife habitat we need to talk about? At least one of us has taken a little bit deeper dive in this and can summarize it maybe for the rest of us and make sure that we've checked all the boxes and done all our work on this, and maybe ease the burden on us collectively by doing a little bit more individually, if that makes sense. So I don't know, I sent this around a week ago, and I don't know if people had a chance. Let me just, some of the things we talked about is a clear limit of work line and appropriate sediment controls and details. Sediment controls, not erosion controls. That's a big pet peeve of Jennifer's. Location, type, and detail of conservation markers. We've been working with many of the regular applicants on that particular issue. Waivers, when we're doing work in an ACEC or inside a no disturb zone, they need waivers. which ones they're actually applying for, and making sure they meet the burden of proof. Along those lines, waivers is a little bit tricky section that you sort of have to, once you know it, you start to sort of know it. But it is something that does take some time getting used to. Wildlife habitat impacts, we've talked about this at a lot of projects, especially one of the larger ones, what the impact is on wildlife. ACEC jurisdiction and rare species habitat. ACEC is, area of critical environmental concern, and there's several of them within the town of Hockomock Swamp, as well as Canoe River Aquifer, are ACECs, which we have a higher burden of protection in these areas, as well as the rare species habitat. We've had a couple of the rare species habitats come before us on the natural heritage side, getting those particular findings. And lastly was stormwater management along those lines. So I don't know if there was anything that particularly interested anybody. Anybody wants to chime in on anything? So, Mike?
Wildlife, I figure we all kind of knew that, but I just said,
Mike has chimed in on wildlife habitat. Mike probably knows more about wildlife habitat in Easton than all of us put together, including. So, anybody else?
I'd like to take a stab at waivers, but I think I'll need a little bit of background on it as we go through.
Okay.
I'd like to not be responsible for waivers at the next meeting, or maybe the one after that.
There's nothing that says here we're not jumping in, feet first all at once. That certainly is something. There's a couple sections in the regulations regarding waivers. We should all get a little bit comfortable. We should all be comfortable with it anyway. But it starts at 503.22. So
You can do ACEC, the area critical environmental concern.
okay. You know what ACEC is already, so you're a step up.
Yeah, there is a handy website on the government page too. Tells me all about it, so should be an expert in no time.
Excellent. Al, I know you had expressed some interest in the waivers as well in an earlier email, but I didn't know if there was anything else that interested you, or you want to chime in on waivers too?
Al, don't let me be a detractor. Let's learn this together.
The one other area that I thought might be helpful from time to time is if the committee needs directed research at a topic yet to be determined in the future. So I've done a lot of research, and wouldn't mind spending time doing that and putting together a paper on behalf of the committee review.
I will say that I have personally benefited from some of Al's research already. So he is quite detail oriented and thorough and very clear and concise in the summary. So you can tell he's put a lot of work into it. So there's always a benefit for the kind of work that you do, Al, on that level of thing. So I think that's a great idea. So we're gonna leave waivers with Ben, wildlife with Mike, ACEC and rare species with Nate, and we'll have Al on special projects. How's that?
Okay.
Excellent. I love that. And I'll just carry the rest of it. I'll make sure I understand what Jennifer tells us we have to do. How's that?
Rory's effectively delegated his chair position.
I think that's the way it's supposed to go, my friend. Okay, so thank you all. Next up is, I just want a reminder, there are two board commission members whose terms expire on June 30th, so that you should be reapplying to the select board through this town website, just to make sure to get that in. I think they normally want all applicants in by June 1st, so you might want to get in by the end of the month. Okay.
I've already put my application in.
Excellent. Perfect. Now if you just get mics in too, we'll be all
I'm
set.
in.
Okay.
That's it.
Excellent. Keep the gang together. I think that was actually it on my yellow Post-it for chair report.
In-person meetings?
Oh, yes, there it is. It's on the, how did I skip over? I skipped over it because I didn't want to do it first. So, the government, the state's order to allow, I know, thank you. State's, order to allow in-person meetings technically expires July 15th. It's unknown whether or not the legislature will extend that. I'm sorry, to allow Zoom meetings in place of in-person meetings. It expires July 15th. So I think that we need to think about what that means for us. So we actually, starting, I think, May 15th, could start doing in-person meetings if we wanted to. I am of the personal opinion we should stay with these remote meetings as long as we possibly can, for a couple of reasons. One is I think it's pretty convenient for us. I think we've all gotten a little used to it. But also, the meeting room that we have available to us on a regular basis on Mondays is a tiny room. It is probably about 12 by 20. It might not be 20, 12 by 16. It's not a big room. And the 7 of us, because we've got the clerk too, plus applicants, it's going to be tight in there. And so I think until we have to go back to in person, I would prefer not to. Not just from a convenience standpoint, but I think it's just probably a better choice to make. I would like to, at some point, try and figure out our schedule to see if we can use the select board room more often. But the select board usually meets on the same nights we do, and that's the problem. So,
Yeah.
any other concerns?
It painted a pretty grim picture of the meeting space. So, I mean, I think, yeah, as long as we can do these, probably better off, because it made it sound like it's just, everyone's trying to use the same space, and that space is terrible. So,
yeah.
Or not ideal.
Plus, in the summertime, having to run the AC in that room at the same time we're having the meeting is like, well, you haven't been in there, Jennifer, during a summertime meeting yet.
Oh, it's only Rory and I that know. It's beautiful. It's loud and hot.
So I'm throwing it out there. I think that we stay remote until we can, at least for now. I think that there are some other options for us for a room, but they're actually out of town hall, which would be some burden on Jennifer and Tish, to be quite honest, because they'd have to take all their files with them over to another space. We could do Frothingham Hall, or there's a conference room in the high school too that's a little bit larger than that one I'm talking about at town hall, that are available for public meetings like ours, where we expect attendees. That's part of the concern that we have. We're not a commission that just meets amongst ourselves and there's nobody who attends, right? We have 10 people in the waiting room tonight. And that's typically what happens in the other spaces. They actually wait in the hallway because there's not enough room in the room to actually wait in the room. So, there are other options, but I'd like to find a bigger meeting space if we possibly can, but it would really be a bit of a burden on Jennifer and Tish to have us do it in a different space than town hall. So we'll stay remote until we can't for now. And if we have to start making choices after July 15th, we'll have to figure that out. Okay?
Agreed. Yep.
Anybody wants to stop at town hall and go up to the second floor to the Mary Connolly meeting room, feel free.
I just picture it like wooden and small, like a lot of wood, and just crowded with chairs.
With an old person photo and everything, the whole nine.
Yeah. Right out of Central
Mary Connolly's portrait is over the fireplace, isn't it?
That's what I didn't know that was her. Should have figured.
I assume it's Mary Connolly. Who else could it be?
It's an old office building when it has a fireplace in it. Come on.
Sure doesn't get cold in there, man. You don't need the damn fireplace.
I was in a courtroom in Springfield last week, and they still have a no smoking sign on the wall.
Okay. Any other comments? There's no public here, so no public comment on in-person meetings. Enforcement complaint 523 Turnpike Street Redux.
We just had a butter complain that landscaping debris was being dumped in the buffer zone, but I have not had a chance to go and inspect that yet.
Yeah, we had a prior enforcement at this property. He had dug up the rear part of his property and was clearing stuff all the way back to his property line, which was the buffer zone. That was about 3 years ago. It was pre-pandemic, so it was probably 3 years ago.
Doesn't that beg the question that, is there any set of regulations or set of things that you can, impose on violators like that?
So, I mean, certainly we have the ability to issue fines, daily fines, but I hesitate to use them as a punishment. I mean, my intention here is obviously to get compliance. Sometimes I will issue fines, and it takes 1 day's worth of fines to get someone's attention. We've done that in the past, but I mean, certainly we do have some ability with fines, daily fines, and until they come into compliance, if they can pile up. But to be honest, some landowners, I think, might find it challenging to pay the fine and do the corrective action. So that's a little bit of a, I don't want to discourage somebody from doing what they're supposed to do. I'd rather have them spend the money to get the work done. So I'm open to ideas. I'm open to ideas for sure.
The only reason I'm raising that is that, it seems that we're in the second situation twice tonight.
Yeah.
And maybe there's, they should have listened to you the first time in the commission. But if they didn't do that and they're coming back to the same violation, I don't know. I think that goes beyond.
Yeah, this isn't the same violation. It's the same address, it's a different violation. So.
Okay. Well,
I understand. The last one was he was cutting down brush and everything else, and this one he's storing landscape debris. So it's not the same exact violation. Maybe he doesn't understand. I don't know. I'm happy to have an education with him. But yeah, no, it's a challenge. I think that it's a challenge when you have two things. One is a non-compliant landowner, right, who's not paying attention to you, doesn't respond to the enforcement letters that you send or anything along those lines. You never hear from them, and then you also have the ones that maybe are slow to do what they're supposed to do or non-compliant. They say they're going to do it and they don't do it. So. Is there a way for us? Is there a way for us to put some sort of lien on the property to ensure that it gets done?
That's what I mean. A wetland permit is a lien, basically.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about short of that. If they don't file it for a permit. So.
I mean, you can go forward with civil action or.
Right.
You may need to be a little bit more specific in the bylaw with first offense is this, second offense is that.
Yeah.
Typically, if you send a letter and there's no response, you send a second warning after the third. If dates have gone by, then you may want to consider fines. It's not, you don't usually just jump straight to the fines.
No, I agree. Yeah. As I said, they've only been used in one or two instances that I recall, just where we were getting no response.
Yeah, I'm only implying that, if it's the second, third, or subsequent, areas of disturbance of the same, on the same property, that there's got to be some ways that you can get across that that's not appropriate.
So maybe what we should do is copy the section of the regs and just take a look at it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I agree with Al, and I think the fines they're just so severe. Yeah, it's kind of the problem with the fines. It's a lot of money on a daily basis.
Isn't it up to $300 a day per
So I
day per
suppose-
violation? So you don't have to go to the max of 300. You could go lower, but I think you might have to stipulate what those are in the bylaw, the regulations a little bit, just so it's a little clearer. But that might be a question for town council.
Yep. Agreed. There are one of the MACC courses is all about enforcement orders, by the way. If you ever see that one, you might take that one. I've taken it. But I took it so long ago, they were just starting to use drones. So it just.
It seems like there might be a difference too with what was going on at 91 Summit Street and what's going on Turnpike Street. I mean,
yeah,
seems like that's different, two different situations.
Yes, no question about it. No question. Okay, let's move along here to environmental planner updates.
2 grants went out last weekend. One was for the reg revisions, getting technical assistance for that. The other one was for the other 78,000 square feet of wetland restoration, and we added the replacement of the culvert just upstream from that. So it's a joint project with the DPW. And then as part of that, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Plan annual report had to be submitted. So that was done last week as well.
Excellent.
That's it.
Anything else from anybody else? Okay, so May 16th is the bylaw change at town meeting. Fun times for all.
Even those on vacation.
Even those on vacation. Okay, thank you all. We need a motion. Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Carol with the motion. Benson with the second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Russman, aye.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Yeah.
I love that. It's awesome. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.